President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi hosts Montenegro's president, boosting ties, regional coordination and diplomacy. Trump announces new strikes on Iran, citing retaliation and asserting U.S. strategic control. And Spain wins 2026 World Cup as Torres scores extra time winner over Argentina. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has received Montenegro's president in Cairo, marking the first presidential level visit since diplomatic ties were established in 2006. Following official ceremonies and bilateral and expanded talks, both leaders underscored expanding economic cooperation, trade diversification and parliamentary ties. Montenegro's president praised Egypt's expertise in tourism, energy and infrastructure, and also welcomed increased Egyptian investment. Discussions also addressed regional crises, with Egypt stressing de-escalation support for Gulf sovereignty and urging a comprehensive US-Iran agreement. President el-Sisi reaffirmed Egypt's firm backing of a two-state solution and rejected any displacement of Palestinians. Montenegro's president has praised the strong alignment between Cairo and Podgorica on international crises, emphasizing diplomacy and cooperation over conflict. He praised Egypt's role under President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi in prompting regional stability and also reaffirmed support for a two-state solution. Both leaders agreed the visit marks a new phase of distinguished relations and intensified political coordination bilaterally and globally. In this context, Montenegro's president extended an official invitation to President el-Sisi to visit Montenegro. First Lady of Egypt, Intisar el-Sisi, has said that she was pleased to meet the First Lady of Montenegro. The two toured the Diarna exhibition in Al-Alamein, a vibrant showcase reflecting Egypt's rich heritage, authentic traditions, and deep-rooted national identity. And moving on to the latest developments in Iran. U.S. President Donald Trump has said the United States launched another powerful attack on Iran overnight. Trump added that strikes were carried out in honor of U.S. service members killed in an Iranian attack on a military base in Jordan. Trump also said Iran had suffered severe damage and had lost almost all of its military capabilities, claiming Tehran was left with only a limited number of missiles, drones, and manufacturing capabilities. He also claimed that the United States controls the Strait of Hormuz, while Iran does not. Trump added that the number of U.S. service members killed in the attack in Jordan was likely 3 rather than 2, following the discovery of remains believed to belong to a missing soldier.
They will continue until all of our objectives are achieved. We have very strong objectives.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said Iran is violating maritime commitments, citing attacks on vessels in the Straits.
Well, they're not complying with it. I mean, the Straits are supposed to be open, free of tolls, free of attack, free of all the things they're doing against these ships. So you can't have an MOU that's alive if they're violating the terms of it. What I will say is that the United States always remains open to a diplomatic solution. We've tried multiple times with Iran, and we'll continue to try. If that door opens, we'll be happy to see it open. But and they continue to send signals that they want to talk, that they want to negotiate, but their behavior is what we're responding to. And their behavior is they're launching missiles and drones against ships, including tonight.
U.S. Central Command said it has completed the 9th consecutive night of strikes against Iran. CENTCOM said it's completed the 9th consecutive night of strikes against Iran on July 19th at 10 p.m. Eastern Time or 2 a.m. GMT. CENTCOM said the strikes targeted Iranian military command centers, air defense and coastal surveillance sites, naval capabilities, missile and drone launch sites, and communication networks. The command said the operations were aimed at continuing to reduce Iran's ability to attack commercial vessels and civilian sailors transiting the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's parliament speaker Mohammad Bagher Kalibaf has accused the United States of moving more military equipment into the region, despite claiming it wants to end the war. Kalibaf accused the United States of continuing to move new military equipment into the region, despite claiming it was seeking to end the war. In a post on X, Kalibaf said Iran has become experienced in understanding U.S. tactics and was prepared to respond accordingly. He added that actions should confirm intentions rather than contradict them. Iran has received a proposal for a 10-day ceasefire aimed at reviving a temporary agreement reached with the United States last month. A senior Iranian official told Reuters on Monday that mediators had presented Tehran with a proposal for a 10-day ceasefire with the United States. The official also said that the proposal aims to create an opportunity to find ways to revive a temporary agreement reached between Washington and Tehran last month. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said negotiations with the United States should take place only after Tehran achieves military and strategic gains on the battlefield. Araghchi said on Monday that the right time to negotiate with the United States would come after Iran achieved military and strategic gains on the battlefield. According to Iran's official IRNA news agency, Araghchi said the war should end when Iran had the upper hand, either through a military victory or negotiations. He added that Tehran was continuously assessing whether continuing the war would bring further gains or result in greater human and national losses.
And to commit atrocity crimes with impunity. Mr. President, at a time when the American-Israeli aggressors
a vessel was struck by an unidentified projectile off Oman's coast and Iran aground. The United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations Agency said on Monday that a vessel was struck by an unidentified projectile about 8 nautical miles northwest of Khazor in Oman and ran aground off the Omani coast. The agency said the crew safely abandoned the vessel and was rescued by a tugboat after earlier reporting that a fire had broken out on board. The incident came after Iran's Revolutionary Guard said 2 oil tankers had exploded and became disabled while attempting to use a southern route through the Strait of Hormuz, which it described as unsafe. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to hold a security meeting on Monday evening amidst the escalating tensions with Iran. Israeli newspaper reported that Netanyahu will hold a security meeting on Monday evening amidst the ongoing escalation with Iran. The meeting is expected to address the latest security and military developments as tensions continue to increase between Israel and Iran. And for more analysis on the situation, we now move on to my dear colleagues. That means Hani Saif in our newsroom. Hani.
Thank you, Rana. Ladies and gentlemen, to discuss this more, we're joined from Washington, D.C. by the author and journalist, Mr. Matthew Vadam. Mr. Vadam, welcome to Q News. Now, what would you say is the end game for Washington by pursuing these sustained strikes on Iran?
Well, it appears that President Donald Trump has given up on regime change in Iran. You know, he was never strongly committed to it, although he did mention it a few times and then backed away. But right now, the goal appears to be restoring freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz and degrading Iran's capacity to threaten international shipping through the strait, which is a bottleneck that through which about 20% of the world's oil supply passes through. So right now, you know, freedom of navigation appears to be the primary American objective.
Mm-hmm. Well, then, this continued military escalation, what impact do you think it will have on the prospects for a U.S.-Iran diplomacy?
I think in the short term, it makes it very difficult for any kind of a peace deal to be arrived at, especially because both sides are accusing each other of cheating with respect to the Memorandum of Understanding. I think the United States, maybe I'm biased because I'm here in America, but I think that the United States has the better argument there. You know, long term, if the United States continues to ramp up military pressure on Iran, it could give them, the Iranians, an incentive to return to the to negotiations, you know, at the bargaining table. Mm-hmm. Without that, I don't see why they would care, because they're enjoying a lot of success from their perspective by keeping the Strait of Hormuz bottled up. It gives them a great deal of leverage, and they you know, they're you know, able to push the United States around while they harass shipping in the strait.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's try to assume that both countries maintain their current strategies. What scenarios could emerge then?
If they both continue doing what they're doing, you mean?
Yes.
I think what could happen is that...
is it a wider escalation? Do you think cooler heads might prevail?
It's difficult to predict. I think that there could be, at least in the short term, a wider escalation, because President Trump is quite angry at the Iranians for, in his view, violating the Memorandum of Understanding. And he's also pissed off that the strait is not fully open to maritime traffic. So I don't think that the prospects for peace at the moment are good. I think if the United States continues to escalate, that this is likely to put pressure on the Iranians, and they may, you know, at some point in the future, you know, days or weeks from now, want to return to negotiations. They are very wily, slippery negotiators. And they're very good at, you know, head fakes, the term they use in American football. You know, they're at tricking their opponents into going along with what they want, knowing that the Iranians know that they're not going to ultimately comply with whatever terms are agreed upon in the deal anyway. Iran can't win on the battlefield. Their military can't be compared seriously to the United States military. But they're very good at talking, and they're very good at stalling progress through negotiations. So, that's their strength, and I think they're going to continue to focus on that. But it may be a while before the fighting, before there is a lull in the current conflict.
Well, definitely a big loser in this whole equation is the global economy now. Do you feel that Trump needs some sort of a peace agreement to, following these major economic blows? Who do you think needs this agreement more, Iran or the US?
Well, totalitarian dictators don't care if their people suffer. So Iran, is not in a hurry to resolve this. They view whatever they're doing as a necessary sacrifice for their revolution, and if they have to suffer more in order to achieve their goals, they're willing to do that. On the other hand, Donald Trump, presides over a democratic nation, and he is under popular political pressure to bring this conflict to an end. He doesn't like that oil prices, which spiked and then dropped down when there was a ceasefire, but now they're spiking up again. He's not happy about this because it leads to higher gasoline prices at the pump, and he is very worried, justifiably, that his party, the Republican Party, could lose control of Congress, at least the House, maybe not the Senate, in the upcoming congressional elections in November. So Donald Trump wants this conflict over as quickly as possible, but at the same time, he wants the Strait of Hormuz to be open to free navigation for international commerce, and he's not willing to tolerate Iran's defiance of this principle.
From Washington, D.C., that was Mr. Matthew Vadam, the author and journalist. Mr. Vadam, thank you very much for joining us here on Q News. Now we head back to Rana Al-Assas in our studio. Rana.
Thank you very much, Henny, for your in-depth analysis. And now we move on with Kuwait's military, which said its air defenses are currently intercepting hostile missile and drone attacks linked to what it described as Iranian aggression. Kuwait's military said its air defenses were actively intercepting missile and drone attacks on Monday, following what it described as an Iranian aggression. The General Staff said any explosions heard in the country were the result of air defense systems intercepting the incoming attacks. The military urged residents to follow all security and safety instructions issued by the relevant authorities. Bahrain's Interior Ministry has achieved warnings, sirens, and urged residents to move to the nearest safe location. Bahrain's Interior Ministry said warning sirens were activated across the country on Monday evening. The ministry urged citizens and residents to remain calm, move to the nearest safe location, and follow updates through official channels. Bahrain has strongly condemned repeated Iranian attacks on civilian and vital infrastructure, including civil aviation navigation systems. Bahrain's foreign ministry strongly condemned what it described as repeated Iranian attacks targeting civilian and vital infrastructure in the kingdom. The ministry also condemned the targeting of civil aviation navigation systems operated by Bahrain's Aeronautical Information Services Administration. It also called on the international community to fulfill its responsibilities and pressure Iran to immediately and completely end what it described as its hostile policy. And moving on to Lebanon, where the United States said the first pilot zone has been launched in Lebanon under a plan involving the deployment of Lebanese forces and an Israeli withdrawal. The U.S. State Department announced on Monday the launch of the first pilot zones in Lebanon, where the Lebanese army is expected to deploy alongside an Israeli withdrawal. The announcement follows talks between Israel and Lebanon and Rome last week. The State Department said the operation are part of a plan to implement the trilateral framework under the Lebanon Military Coordination Group. A large explosion was heard in southern Lebanon after Israeli forces carried out a demolition operation in the town of Kafr Tibnit. Lebanon's national news agency reported on Monday that a large explosion was heard in the Nabatea area of southern Lebanon. The agency said the blast was caused by an Israeli military demolition operation in the Kafr of Tibnit. It added that the thick clouds of smoke rose from the town and could be seen from a considerable distance. And on a lighter note, Spain secured the 2026 World Cup title following the dramatic extra time win against Argentina, with Ferran Torres scoring the decisive goal. Jubilant scenes swept Madrid as officials praised a landmark victory and a historic milestone in international football. Hani Saif has the latest from the World Cup. Hani.
That's right, Rana. Another star, a second star on the Spanish jersey. Stay tuned. Spain were crowned the 2026 World Cup champions after substitute Ferran Torres scored in the 106th minute to secure a 1-0 win. Extra time victory over defending champions Argentina. Spain dominated possession and chances, while Argentina, reduced to 10 men after Enzo Fernandez's dismissal, relied on resilience and goalkeeper Emiliano Martinez's record saves. Despite overwhelming Spanish pressure, the deadlock persisted until Torres struck decisively. The triumph makes Spain the first nation to simultaneously hold both men's and women's World Cup titles, including a historic 48-team tournament across North America that produced a record 308 goals. Moments ago, the Spanish royal family received Spain's national football team a short while ago, following its victory in the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez has congratulated the national team on their World Cup triumph, calling it a victory for all Spaniards. At Caymas, Spain secured a 1-0 win over 10-men Argentina through Ferran Torres' extra-time strike. The squad arrived in Madrid and will meet King Felipe VI and Sanchez before a celebratory parade. And that's the curtain call on the World Cup 2026 tournament. Now we head back to Rana Al-Assas in our studio. Rana.
Through Hani, the curtain, of course, and of course, Hani, we congratulate Spain on behalf of all Egyptians here in Egypt. That's the end of our news bulletin for this hour. But before we go, here's a quick recap of the top stories making headlines this hour. President Sisi hosts Montenegro's president, boosting ties, regional coordination and diplomacy. Trump announces new strikes on Iran, citing retaliation and asserting U.S. strategic control. And Spain wins 2026 World Cup as Torres scores extra-time winner over Argentina. That concludes this hour's Q News Bulletin. As the day's developments continue to unfold, our coverage continues as well. Stay with Q News.